Welcome to Marcy in the Middle. This is a podcast with Amy Seiffert, my friend, and just a joy to know and be around. And I will let all of the viewers and listeners know this is the second time we're recording this podcast because the first time we did it, it was a great video with no sound. So we're going to be double good this time, right, Amy?
100%.
We got it nailed down. Also, we had a time zone issue and I left my notes and it's real life, people. Amy's got spring break. Her kids are literally waiting on her to get in the car, I think. So we're going to head right in. Welcome to the podcast.
I love it, Marcy. This is life, and everybody can relate right now. Everyone feels this.
Oh, man. Okay, so Amy, I did not give the fancy spiel like I did on the other one, but she is an author. She is a speaker. She's a wife. She's a mama to three. She is on the teaching team at her church in Ohio. And I got to meet her through a cohort that we're both in called Ecclesia, which has been a blast and literally connected us with lots of amazing people. But Amy has a book that's just launched. Now it's been, when did it launch, Amy?
The 21st of March, so 3 weeks or so. Yeah.
Doing really well on Amazon.
Yeah.
And she is a beautiful human, but she is also extremely real, which is a wonderful combo. She loves the Lord, she loves her family, and she is very vulnerable in this book. I'm just going to kind of pitch it to you and let you show everyone the beautiful book because we both match it. So we're like,
Here
it's beautiful. Tell everybody kind of the premise and how you got to it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. Okay, the premise, this all started under my own roof. My son, about 4 years ago, my oldest, he was he was eating, but he was starving. And what I mean by that is we watched him over the course of about 6 weeks one summer just slowly start to lose weight. And he was looking really thin. And then he started to have some stomach pain after he was eating. He was depressed. He was sleeping a lot, and he just wasn't my boy. And even some neighbors were like, "Hey, Robbie's looking a little bit thin," and I'm in a little bit of a denial. I'm like, "Oh, he's fine. He's growing. He's probably just getting taller. Like it's all good." But man, there was a night we needed to get him to the hospital. He was in such pain, and after a ton of tests, blood work, all the things, we got the diagnosis that my son was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which I did not know much about at the time, but now I'm an expert because we've been living with this for 4 years. But that just, I mean, everything just changed in that moment. And what we decided was to try a diet change for him because inflammation in the intestines, like let's do this and really punch Crohn's into remission. But I remember taking every spice out of my drawer, every food item out of my pantry, everything out of my refrigerator. And we're looking at all the, where are the caking agents? Where's the maltodextrin? Like just a complete overhaul. And I was so overwhelmed, Marcy. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I had been staying up late researching. I had been Googling. I was exhausted, was tired. And I felt like in that moment, this wasn't audible, but in my spirit, I felt like God said, I want to shepherd you through this valley, but you need to come to me. Like, I come to me, put down your phone, stop scrolling, stop researching. Those are all good things, but seek me. And I felt like, I need a spiritual diet change. I need to change the way I'm relating to God, the way I'm going toward everything to just fix this. And I started to see our world, everybody around us like, I think we need a spiritual diet change. I think there's some things some small, simple practices to replace what's actually starving us with some nourishing things in our life.
Was this was pre-2020, right? It would have been
Yes, this is 2018.
Okay. So the world was still spinning, in our what we would call normal,
Yeah.
normal, which was still crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 2020 kind of slammed us all into the stop. Yeah, I can't imagine that Crohn's disease. I've got a friend who has it, and it literally does every single thing in your life has to change. And I can't imagine being the mom. Different when it's us, and it's I think
Yes.
harder when it's your kids because we're supposed to be able to fix in our own minds everything that goes on with them.
Yes. Yes. If mama can't fix it, who is, right?
That's
Like I just
right.
felt like it was, and that's a heavy weight to carry. If it's all up to me, I felt like God was like, okay, like I want to be your shepherd, but man, whew.
Well, that's beautiful. It's hard. It's easy to talk about now, and it's so fun to read the 23rd Psalm. But I'm like, it's way less fun when you have to start walking it out and
Yes.
seeing resting in that and the trusting. And I don't know about you. Probably you would say this at least beforehand. It's much easier to try really hard than to trust. And like, I'm a good trier, but I'm a terrible truster.
Oh, for sure. Let me put my muscle into it. Let me like get after it. And yeah, I think trying it feels easier. It's the release, the surrender that, oh, yep.
Yeah, take your hands off the wheel. The well, I love that the book is called Starved, and it is a. I'm obviously sorry that you had to walk through all of the everything it took to get to a beautiful book because I feel like sometimes we just think, oh, look at this, and you're like, no, I had to live every bit of that before I wrote it on the page.
Yes.
I don't want to do it again. Give me a break, Lord. But we are. There is no better title for the book or word for I think the condition a lot of us have found ourselves in, and you do a beautiful job of addressing things that literally relate to every single person I know. There's not a chapter
Mm.
that does not apply to us in some way. And my really, really favorite thing about the book is that you tie in some practices at the end of each chapter. So you don't just say, these are 50 things that are wrong with us in the world. Now,
Yes.
good luck. I hope you can figure that out. You're very,
Yeah.
you're honest about what some of our issues are, but you're also very gentle in saying, hey, the first chapter is on the phone. And listen, that's probably number one in everyone's book, man, woman, child, regardless of age, sex, gender, race. You're just like, it's a problem. And but you don't hammer us and shame us. You kind of walk us through sharing your own extremely personal stories through different things, and then offer a practice at the end of each chapter. And I wonder, obviously, we want people to buy the book. Buy the book. It's a Bible study that is beautiful and highly recommended by my mother, who is a part of the Bible study. So,
I love it.
that's right. She's on the AVT. But walk us through a couple of chapters that kind of maybe were the most meaningful to you. I know that's kind of tricky because it's all extremely personal. But walk us through a couple of the chapters that meant something to you.
Yes, yes. Well, right off the bat, starting with my phone, I kind of admit I'm a phoneaholic. I'm in recovery. We're raising our hands here. Yes, because man, I I always think connecting with my phone is what I need, and really the practice of silence and putting it down can be scary, but so beautiful and rewarding. Yeah, so I talk about the day that I actually checked my screen time because a friend was like, she was setting some limits on some apps and her phone. I thought, that's nice for you. That's really lovely. Good job. And then I was curious. I was like, I wonder 8 hours and 47 minutes was my screen time, the average screen time for the week. And I was so floored. But I wanted to get to the bottom of that. I was like, what is happening? Why? What do I believe about my phone? And the more I thought through a biblical lens and who I am and who God is, I really was looking to my phone to provide for me, to take care of me, to bring me validation or distraction or even a quick, a spiritual moment, a sermon bit from a fantastic pastor. But these things are fine. But man, if we feast on them for so long, they actually will starve us. They'll do the opposite. And so it was a lot of reading about the spiritual disciplines to begin to say, I'm going to practice purposefully, not perfectly, to put my phone down and set a timer for 5 minutes of silence where I purposely disconnect from the noise and the dings and the bells of my phone and connect with my God. Which actually, Marcy, I didn't grow up with a lot of the spiritual disciplines. I like checking boxes. I know you do too. And especially the spiritual boxes, right? I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do
Yes.
But often we can miss God even in the spiritual box checking. And what does it look like to sit by a window and let nature calm my soul and think about the Matthew 6 moment where God is providing for the birds in the fields. And so I watch the birds in my backyard and I think, if he's got them, he's got me. And to sit in the silence and the quiet, that can be very uncomfortable. But that new practice, man, I've been doing that for a while, and that has been so good and nourishing to my soul. The literal letting go of the phone, surrendering,
Yeah.
and opening my hand and say, God, I'm listening, I'm here, has been so good for me.
Yeah. That is, I just think it's so timely. And again, every chapter in here speaks to, has spoken to me and speaks to just all my friends. Like I know there's nobody that can't relate to that. And we are literally, I have just been in kind of a weird space since our um, cohort retreat, and just kind of thinking through what do I believe provides me with what? I mean, like literally exactly the book. And I'm not totally through the book. I'm further than I was last week. Um, but just walking through and saying, I know that I am starved for connection. And even on our retreat, I wrote that on the little rock when we were talking about what we were looking for. I recognize that in myself. And then I recognize myself, looking here and here and here and here, trying to get that connection. And not with the Lord for sure, but also with people. And my phone, honestly, I thought this morning, I need to flip on and just see what my screen time is. And I'm like, I'm too scared to look at it. It's not going to be good.
I know.
I know it's not going to be good. And we can justify. I have 2 jobs that I work solely almost off my phone.
Yes.
You do too.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can use it literally to write. I mean, you can, like you
Mhm.
said, sermon bits. It's not even that
Yes.
what you're looking at is bad. It's just a very poor replacement for real life. It's kind of like I think of iceberg lettuce. Like you can make a salad with it, but there's not a lot that's going on in it to nourish your actual body.
I love that. Absolutely.
Like iceberg kale. I don't know. Uh,
Yes.
Sometimes you gotta have the kale.
Yes.
I also loved, you talked about shame and identity and letting go of those. Talk a little bit. Shame is tricky because I'm not sure we always even recognize that that's what we're carrying. So, if you don't mind to just share a little bit on that
Yes.
chapter.
Yes. Yes. So I quickly thought through all the places that are starving us and our shame narratives, from things people have said to us, done to us, scars that have been put upon us, or scars that we've put on others. So things we've done instead. So there's just, yes, we carry scars and we've created scars. And so what does it look like for us to look at our shame stories and say, is that running in the back of my head? Yes. How do I replace it with the narrative that I am beloved, I am taken care of, I am loved, and God has forgiven, and God wants to heal those places. And so for me, one of the deepest places of shame was sexual abuse when I was a young girl, um, by a neighbor. And I had kind of locked that away, which our brains are amazing. I was in survival mode, locked it away. And then it came back out when my son turned the same age that I was when the abuse happened. And I really had to deal. And praise God for therapy, counseling, medication, community, his spirit, right? All the things.
Yeah.
But really asking God to give me a new nourishing narrative from that shame narrative that I was just an object used and abused versus a beloved daughter of the Most High King. And it has been through a lot of different avenues, and particularly God's word for me, where God has given me a new picture of not only his righteous anger at the injustice, but also the healing nature that he, in Psalm 18, it says, he rescued me because he delighted in me. And that has transformed me, that he delights in me. He is rescuing me from the shame. I mean, it still comes up, but I am lighter and freer and more whole as I put it into vulnerable, like as I'm vulnerable and I step into the light and I share with safe folks and I let God heal me through others as well as through his word. But I think we are our shame is starving us. And what does it look like to even take a moment to write down what that narrative is and to ask God, would you replace that narrative with a new nourishing narrative of how you see me and who I am? And how important it is to take that time to be vulnerable, even admit it to ourselves, as well as to admit it to safe people and to the Lord.
Yeah, I think that too. I think sometimes we write ourselves off because we would be done with us if we were God. And there are people that we have been done with. Like, hey, cross the line. You're no longer whatever. And so we hold on to shame. And most of us, myself at the top of the list, I have way more times than not been the cause of my own shame. I
Yes.
will participated in something or um, whatever. I mean, pick a situation. It's my doing that caused my shame. So we kind of put that as a separate category and it is, there are different consequences of that. But as far as carrying the shame, we don't, we think we deserve that. That's the proper punishment and mindset to follow.
Yes.
And then it kind of cripples the way you live in a sense. I think it adds we carry something we're not meant to carry. And the Lord is not sitting there saying, yes, that's your punishment. I'm just going to keep piling it on. He's trying to, which oftentimes drives us right back to the behavior.
Yes.
In my own life, I'm like, well, I've already messed up, so might as well go do it again or go try something else.
Yes.
The shame narrative is, I think, so important. Another chapter that I'm doing the Audible book. So another chapter that I listened to you read to me yesterday
My voice. Here we go.
was on justice, and I loved it because you were again very open with um, your own what you've come to realize about yourself, and then processing it out. Another wonderful thing about the book is you quote a lot of people, and I love that. I love it when authors do that, and you gave us
Oh, yay.
On Be the Bridge, who has done just so much work for racial bridge building and
Yes.
stuff like that. So that one, and then our identity. We mentioned earlier, trying to go back in my head since I left my notes on the cabinet. Um, I
Okay.
mentioned that you did some practices at the end of each chapter. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, two things. One were the you do some breath praying, breath prayers. I don't know if that's even actually what they're called, but uh,
Yes, yes.
I call them. Tell
So
us
there.
just a little bit about how you came upon that, and then maybe walk us through how that actually works practically, because it's so it's very centering. I think.
I I actually don't. I've seen breath prayers through a lot of different writing and authors, and even some counseling, to just really simplify and to say, hey, is there a way that I can connect my body and my mind and my soul together? I love that there's a inhale with a few words and an exhale with a few words, and even knowing that I'm actually calming my whole nervous system down with that prayer. I mean, even, at the beginning of chapter 1, I'm just looking at it right now. The exhale is, God, I disconnect from the noise. And then the inhale is, I reconnect with you. I disconnect with the noise. I reconnect with you. And I love the guidance there, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but I don't know how to pray or ask for what I need. But if someone gives me a little bit of a guide that sparks something of like, yes, that is what I want. I want to disconnect from the noise, and I want to connect with you. And it's something that, even like driving, I find myself driving and saying a breath prayer like, the Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. And just something you can. So yeah, I tried to, I'm a really practical girl. Like, I love talking about all the theology, but I'm like, but in the end, how do we practice a new way of being? So yes, these breath prayers have been anchors for me, and you see them, Andy Colbert. I mean, you just see them in so many different spaces and places. Black Liturgies, she's an amazing writer, and she has these too. So yeah, I love them.
Um, the practicality, I do think, like you just said, it's fun to talk about theology sometimes, depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
But
Yes.
yes, it is. But I think a lot of us, we are living real life that does not often afford us multiple hours to sit down and dig into some of that. Sometimes we can, and it's important to make time to do some of that. But I feel like a lot of my friends, and I know a lot of our listeners and viewers, are in the middle of a somewhat chaotic life, and just to be able to take 15 seconds. I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, and it does really bring you back to center. The chapter that I was had planned this morning, and I'm glad I hit it this morning, was, I think it was either the plate of anxiety. It's where you talk about grounding, and
Yes.
it's another practice that a lot of therapists use. One of mine that I have talked to did that. Can you speak a little bit? It's kind of along the same lines of the breath prayers, but can you speak to that just a little bit, and how that soothes anxiety?
Yeah. Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you're a young mom, you got kids, if you're a grandparent, if you're at work trying to get a ton of stuff done, this is possible to do literally anywhere.
Anywhere. Yes. This is therapy. These are books. This is beautiful. And I love the idea of grounding. There's a couple different things that you can do, but if I start to feel my temperature rising and I'm getting frustrated, overwhelmed, and anxious, there's a couple things. One, you can just literally start to like wiggle your toes in your shoes and feel your feet on the ground wherever you are, literally connecting your feet to the ground. And this actually, if you're getting into fight and flight mode, this will connect you back to your brain will go back online, which have struggled with anger and outbursts and all the different things. And so that helps kind of calm me so I can think and not react. Another thing that's been helpful is to use your five senses when you're becoming overwhelmed. And I tell a story of like literally tripping over a box of honey on my porch, and I was having an overwhelming morning, and picking that box up, like using my body to pick up a box, setting it down. I opened the honey and I smelled it, just using your five senses to take you out of fight or flight and really bring you back down to be able to think and really, and then you can access the spiritual truths that you have. But if you are so overwhelmed, you can't even do that. Like the idea of praying is like so overwhelming. So finding, or sometimes grounding is finding, five things that you can see, and four things you can hear, and three things you can smell, and two things you can touch, and one thing you can taste, like using so I just love integrating our bodies and our minds and our souls for some simple practice that can bring us down from anxiety and put us in a place where we can receive God's peace, because we've made just a little practice of grounding right there in the moment, wiggling toes, going for a walk, getting outside, drinking water. Yeah.
All of the things that are good for us. I think,
Yes.
well, a couple of things that strike me about this is my personality is typically, if the feelings are not good, if they're unpleasant or stress, I'm okay with almost better than sadness. Or if somebody is, if I can't fix something for someone, which is kind of what we talked about earlier, I want to escape. I'm an Enneagram 7, and I will run. The Ready to Run Dixie Chick song.
It's you.
Can have a plane ticket bought in 3 seconds on some credit card if I am feeling the heat, and just to escape in that. The grounding, I've really tried to just feel the feelings.
Yes.
You're not going to die feeling the feelings. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. You have to be uncomfortable for a minute to actually healthily process the feelings. And that is such a drawback. And I feel like sometimes, again, in church, I talked a little bit about the little envelope that you just check off. When I when I was a little kid in Sunday school, did you read your Bible? Did you give your tithe? Did you invite someone to church? Did you do this? And I love checking the boxes, just like you said. We want to be good little soldiers and accomplish all the things. And we get in such a mode of doing that we rarely sit. And what Jesus did a lot of things in his 3 years of ministry, but you did not ever get the sense that he was running stressed. Like,
Hurried. Yes.
like he did his thing. We had dinner. I think The Chosen has done a really beautiful job of
Yes.
giving us a picture of that. He was present with whoever he was with. And yes, he was Jesus, and he knew who he was by that point and what he was doing. But he just was there. And I think we forget a lot of times that we are not just somebody that's doing. We are a human.
Yes.
Is physical, is emotional, is spiritual, and that all of those things are together. That's not a separate category. Like, I don't just do church for spiritual and eat food for this. And
Yes.
it's a beautiful, if you can be whole, it's a good thing.
Yes. Yes. I forever separated those things. These are the spiritual things. And then this is work and life and babies and diapers. But to see like, wait, there's spirit, it's all connected. Yeah. Yes. The wholeness, the shalom in that. I love that. Yeah.
And you do just, it feels really good when you can get all of those kind of working in sync. And don't you think it takes the pressure off of making
Yes.
it all happen in work? And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it takes the pressure off, and it kind of infuses some joy of like, okay, I image God when I'm working hard. God worked hard. I also image him when I rest
yeah,
and when I play and when I change a diaper. Like there isn't the spiritual work and then the dirty work. Like, I mean, God frequently, Jesus was talking about mustard seeds and bread and fish and, all the just normal everyday life. Yeah. And that's really freeing too, because we are everyday life people. Like, that's who we are.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think, sometimes, especially maybe as moms, we don't consider making meals for our family a holy thing, a form of worship.
Yes.
We don't think folding underwear, it's not glamorous, let's be honest, but it is
Right.
service and an offering to the Lord in that season.
Yes.
And just knowing, okay, today I fed my kids and I washed the clothes. That's good.
That's good work.
Yeah, I may
That's
not have,
good work.
gone back and read the Hebrew, uh, whatever, Jeremiah, but we got clean underwear and it's
Yes.
a
Yes, I took a class years ago, Marcy, on it was called Everyday Spirituality. And it was talking about God as maintainer and sustainer and the amount of things, especially moms in traditional roles, right? Moms maintain and sustain our whole world. Like we literally, Colossians 1:17, hold our world together the way Jesus holds everything. And the idea of God rising the sun and setting it over and over, and the tide coming in and out over and over, and us doing dishes over, like we have so many maintaining and sustaining activities that will never be done. We will do them till we die. We will empty the dishwasher until we die. And yet God is also doing those things until he creates a whole new situation. But we're like him as we maintain and sustain. And that is good work. And we sometimes we rank things as spiritual or not. It is not. It is, these are all spiritual.
Yeah, that's good. What would you say you have, what's the most meaningful thing that has, that maybe you've learned about yourself or God or your family or just life in general throughout the process of writing the book and now on the other side of publishing?
Mm. I mean, truly, I came out of that first chapter with silence because I can't believe what silence does for me. I'm an Enneagram 3, and so I like to achieve and get after it and get it done. And to sit there and do nothing and let myself be loved by doing nothing, that's transformative. And so even in the process of writing the book, there were points where I just went for a walk and did no more writing and let myself be. And that's been so healing for me, that I am not the sum of my productivity. I'm not, I don't add up to all the things I push out into the world. I'm I'm loved. I'm in his image, and that's enough, and that's so good. So that process. Another big thing for me, and this has been a again, purposeful but not perfect practice, is the Sabbath has really changed our life, because I think we're exhausted because we don't plan to rest and really trust that. And the beauty about the Sabbath for us now is we are not under the Old Testament law. However, it is still a gift that God is inviting us to enjoy as a day where we put everything down and we say, God, I've worked hard for 6 days. I'm going to delight in the fruits of my labor. I'm also going to trust you to provide for me while I rest, because you are God and I am not. You don't rest when I do. You are always working and I don't have to. And again, in our fast-paced consumeristic, productivity world, this is foreign, and I think we're starving for a rhythm of a weekly Sabbath.
I do too. I feel like in the years, especially leading up to 2020, the hustle and grind culture was, well, it is very noble if you're so busy that you don't have time to sit down, or that you don't, if you have 6 jobs, great, that makes you a better little, performer than someone who has 1 or 2, and more money, more things, more, and just like you said, we are drowning in the more and still starving. And then 2020 was a disaster in many ways, but I do think it brought everybody back to, I mean, the brakes were thrown on. And while that created a whole other sense of stress and anxiety, it did force you to slow down a little bit. And by nature, I'm like you. I'm a goer and a doer. And just forcing you to do that. And it was hard for people who returned that way. I think that was the year that introverts were like, yes, we can hide.
Finally.
And people like me and probably you were just like, oh, I don't even know what to do. I don't know how to stay at my house one day
Yes.
without something. And I think the Lord has used that to reveal, okay, while I'm happy that people are healthy again and working and able to provide for their families and that we can most definitely get together, I feel like a lot of us have let go of some of the hustle and grind to just say, oh, you know what? That was not all bad. Like,
yes,
I do want to be able to stay home one day and not like itch from being shut in or being and getting back outside to breathe and let the sun in has been good. And that practice, literally almost every practice in your book drives you back to centering on what is true and how you fit into that, and a reminder that you are not responsible for the world. You are not even responsible for sustaining your own life. So just breathe and it will go. I also love that you don't ignore the fact that real life happens. Like the Crohn's disease, the Lord has brought good things out of it. It's still not a fun time.
Right.
Right. You're not, oh, yay, I got a book. So that was all worth it. Some days, no. Still,
right.
I would rather my son not have to go through all of that. And I feel like acknowledging stuff happens. I mean, bad stuff happens, good stuff happens, and we don't get to pick and choose, but he is faithful to bring us through. What would you say if you could look back, because we've kind of talked about a lot of the book. You got to buy the book, people, to get all the rest of it. You're going to want the book, and I don't say that if I don't mean it, because time is precious.
Exactly.
Spend your money and time on the good books. But if you were going to go back and talk to 20-year-old Amy, what would you tell her from this perspective that you've learned, or just maybe something you wish you had known?
Yeah, man, and I would answer this question in a million, like
yeah, it's a lot.
I'm going to go here. Well, no, I mean, here's what I want to say to myself, and I want to say it now. I want to say to my 20-year-old self, I would say, let's renew our picture of who the Father is and live out of that. And what I mean is I shared this before, I cannot get out of Luke 15:20, this verse. And I would want my little Amy, my 8-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, and I need this today, to think, how does God see me? And can I live in that new nourishing narrative? So I call it the Father's 5 out of Luke 15:20. And I would want my little self to look at this, but there's 5 verbs of who the Father is ascribed to him, and how he sees the son that took all the money and ran with the inheritance and spent it all and is coming home shoeless and like head down in shame. But the Father's reaction is nothing like maybe many of our earthly fathers or how we would react. And Jesus was very purposeful in his storytelling and told this story that we could come back to the Father all the time. And it says, the Father saw him. That's the first verb. He saw his son. And I would want my 20-year-old self to know, you are seen, Amy. All your dreams in your heart are seen. All your fears are seen. All your hopes are seen. You're seen. And then it says he was filled with compassion for his son who blew thousands of dollars. Compassion, empathy, and action. That's compassion. Filled compassion. And then he chased down his son. He starts running toward his son, that God is pursuing us. He's not tired. He hasn't walked away. He's not going the other way. He's running. He's embracing us, full, like, body falling on his son, like covering him, embracing, and he's kissing us, which is a sign of restoration and forgiveness. So those 5 verbs, God the Father sees us filled with compassion, running, embracing, kissing. I would say, oh, young Amy, sit in that picture of the Father and let yourself be loved by a Father who has those verbs for you, and live out of that. Don't live out of your hustle. Don't live out of trying to find your validation from a million other places, all the likes and the comments and the share, any of it. That your Father has a posture, a heart posture that is so toward you and for you. Live out of that.
So good. So good. Exactly what I need to hear today. Exactly what I need to hear. I think
Same.
one thing that makes me battle against getting still is I'm like, what if he's not gonna be who I need him to be? What if he's not gonna be that? And even though I know that's who he is, there is something about trusting and getting still and leaning into that that is just, I don't know why I think it's so hard. And sometimes I don't think it's hard, and then other times I'm just like, oh, that is beautiful. I love that story. Love that story. Listen,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. I appreciate you rearranging your life multiple times for us. Amy is also available on YouVersion. I did not mention that, and on Instagram. She does Bible Minutes with Amy. And it is, if you're gonna have your phone out, it's a worthwhile. Bible Minute with Amy. Where else? Tell us where. I'm not sure what your handles are on Instagram or Facebook, and then your website.
Yep. Amy Seiffert. So that's easy. Amy Seiffert and my name. And then yeah, Instagram I think is fun if you gotta be on there. If you gotta be on the phone. And then amyseiffert.com, where you can find speaking and books and just goodies, all kinds of things over there. So
Yeah, for sure. Hold up your book one more time.
yes, where'd it go? Over here.
It's art. It's beautiful, brightly colored. It is available everywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Target, all the places. Get the book. No joke. I'm never going to say to get something that's, first of all, I haven't read or listened to. Second of all, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
from that like mid-40s on, I'm like, it better be really good, or we ain't got time for it. So
I'm with you.
but
I'm with you.
thank you so much for coming. And is there anything you want to say that we haven't said?
No, we covered it. I loved it. I love chatting with you, Marcy. This is so good.
Thank you. I missed you. I hope you have a wonderful
Yes.
spring break.
Thank
And
you.
see you back on Zoom with our other people.
Yep. Perfect.